Concordia co-founder and CEO Matt Swift to the conversation. Matt, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria. Thank you for having me.
When you look at that video just there, it doesn't look like she grabbed Donald Trump.
This is a classic sort of distraction. In any other campaign, if the candidate is being asked over and over and over about his campaign manager, something is going wrong in that campaign. But this is Donald Trump. This is a perfect example of the kinds of distractions that he's able to develop over anything. He loves this because he's not going to be asked some of the specific questions when it relates to policy positions or anything that he should be asked as a presidential candidate.
What do you think about that, guys?
I think that as a general rule, don't put your hands on people. I don't care who it is. Corey Lewandowski is not Secret Service. If he was worried about Michelle Fields getting too close to Donald Trump, that's what the Secret Service is there for. This, by the way...
He pulls her. Look at it.
The video is pretty clear. He pulls her. She does not touch him, as he had stated.
If he had only
just
said, yeah, I touched her arm, sorry. But that's not what happened. In fact, Lewandowski tweeted about Michelle Fields, and he called her delusional. And he said that I've never met you. I mean, I actually have the exact tweet.
He said, I don't think we've ever met. I saw his tweet.
Right. He said, you were totally delusional. I never touched you. As a matter of fact, I have never even met you. But after the fact, he would know. But do I think that this hurts them? No.
You don't think it hurts them?
Not any more than his, the way that women feel about him now. But he needs to work on the positive, not the negative.
The one thing I'll say, and I'm not defending him at all, but if you've worked on a campaign and you've been close to the candidate and you're in a room like that, it's really easy when there's tons of people around the candidate. It's really easy to get in a situation like that. I think that what they should have done, they should have just blown it off and said, apologies. I was trying to protect the candidate. I was trying to get him out the door. Because I've been in places with a candidate when I worked on Senate campaigns. Reporters are around them. I don't think I ever shoved anyone. But my point is, you could have simply gotten rid of the situation by saying, I was trying to get the candidate out. Maybe I shoved you. I'm sorry.
This is a misdemeanor, by the way, and you can get, just to point out, you can get charged just for touching somebody. Like, you don't have to inflict any kind of injury or
and it does look like he pulled her. I mean, and then she had, I guess, a microphone, and it was taped that she said, oh, my God, he really just pulled me really hard, like right after the incident. Matt, I want to ask you about this op-ed you wrote with Morgan. Morgan's with us this morning. Both of you wrote this op-ed on foxbusiness.com titled The Trump Lesson, Start Listening, Losers, from your column. Let's talk about that for a second. What are you trying to establish here?
I think the main point here is simply that the other candidates, the other presidential candidates in this election cycle came out and looked at this as sort of business as usual, then couldn't believe that they were running against Donald Trump. And in that entire process, forgot one very important fact, which is always respect and pay attention to the voter. So when Donald Trump comes on stage and they're talking about the kinds of issues that Donald Trump, the kind of controversies that he brings, the ridiculous things that he will say, which is very effective for him as a candidate, the other candidates came out and said, well, wait a minute, why are we going up against this? How did this all happen? But instead, what they should have been doing is sitting there and saying, why are people voting for this? What is it about what Donald Trump is saying is appealing to voters so that we can build as a candidate, as a campaign, that we can build a platform that appeals to them.
That's absolutely right.
We sort of lost attention when it comes to the voter and what it was that was backing the support. This is a lot more than just a bunch of angry old people sort of supporting a guy and Tea Party driven or talk radio driven. This is much more than that.
It's big.
But nobody ever sat there to really pay attention to it until, unfortunately, I think, too late.
Yeah, you're right. And Morgan, you and Matt write this. The Republican Party, or so-called establishment, has failed to realize the most important message. It's not about Trump and what he's saying. It's about what the voters are saying and how many are speaking. And Republican voters are demanding change. It's time to start listening, or in the words of Donald Trump, keep losing.
Yeah, I think what really motivated Matt and I to write the op-ed is we had both endorsed personally another candidate, and we were not Trump fans. But when our candidate got out, and as the primary has gone along, we had talked to our friends in Washington and people who cared about the party and politics, and we started hearing things like, oh, this is just a one-off year. Okay, this is, next year it will be fine. Oh, this is just talk radio. Oh, this is just a Tea Party. And Matt and I sort of went, wait a minute, guys. We're young millennials who care about the party, who care about this country and how it's governed. And if we really step away from this election, rolling our eyes and just saying, oh, Donald Trump, he's so uncouth, you can't do that as a party. You have to say, you have to learn the lessons of his candidacy. What is wrong with our policies? What is wrong with our message? What's not working here? And so I think people who care about the party and have worked in it can be quite defensive, you know, when maybe in this op-ed. But I'm saying this is the time for introspection from our party. This is our time, whether you support Trump or not. And we say this in the op-ed, talk of a party split is passé.
Yeah.
The split has already happened.
Yeah.
So
It's the reason everybody got mad at Mitt Romney, right? Because they said, Mitt, stop pushing against this massive force that is the people.
I think the establishment completely is misjudging this thing. What they're failing to realize is that there's not this great allegiance on behalf of the average American voter towards a party. There's an allegiance towards a candidate who's ultimately going to solve getting jobs back to the United States or securing the borders or so forth. And if Donald Trump is that candidate, then you're going to have allegiance to him, not the party.
Right, and and the New York Times yesterday had a great, you know, piece on how the Republican Party, sort of the establishment, lost voters. And one of the things that I thought was pretty profound is they said, you know, the Tea Party railed against Obamacare, but actually when they started polling the individual members of the Tea Party, they actually wanted Social Security. They weren't interested in privatization. So I think, you know, some of the things, when you look at the middle-class voters and the working-class voters who have been loyal to the Republican Party, while they're not in love with Obamacare, they're saying, we don't have the same quality of life that we used to have. Our jobs are being taken by China, are being taken by immigration, and you're not speaking to us. We've been voting faithfully for you, probably based on the social issues, but we're in a bad place, and we need economic security.
If any of the leadership had bothered to drive down through the South and across the Midwest one time in the last 30 years, they would have seen this coming. And they were completely disconnected with how people felt.
Now, here's the challenge, though, and I was recently asked this in a meeting. What do you think about the future of the U.S. steel industry? Do you think China should be allowed to dump steel into the United States? Should we be in the business of manufacturing steel? And the reality is, it is much more productive for our society to manufacture a higher value-add product than to manufacture a basic commodity. But if you don't manufacture a basic commodity, of course it does take away jobs. So it's one thing to say that we're going to get those jobs back, but maybe from the economic perspective, we don't want those jobs back. It's just we want other jobs here. Different jobs.
But you also have to have the skill set to do that. So that goes back to education. We're not training our people with the jobs that are actually vibrant for tomorrow. Big issue there. Matt Swift, good to see you, sir. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Morgan Ortagus, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Great op-ed, you guys. We will see you soon.